So we've been doing a lot of talking about the image of God, the blueprint to the religious world, looking at how that blueprint will eventually pass away and a more suitable to replace it. And I know it's been a long time since I even said that phrase, more suitable manner to carry our personal devotional conversation, but that's actually the origin of all of this, is looking at that more suitable way of carrying our devotional conversations, thoughts, and feelings, what that more suitable way is, which led us into understanding firstly how the religious world is framed, and firstly how our conversation is brought up and raised within the religious world, leading us to the Code of Moses, the image of God, and then just briefly looking at the revelation, but now returning back to the image of God, because there are things that the image of God was created or put into, and those things being male or female. Now, going through the subject of the image of God, understanding that that image is not a literal image, that image is a philosophical characterization, and that philosophical characterization being the philosophy of the religious law, being the code of Moses, being the ethic of one taking their righteousness, their piety, their favor, their everything that they imagine to be within whatever divine eye they imagine that divine eye to be, from the code or from the law or a code of religion. But it doesn't just end there, because it says that the image of God was placed into man. We saw that that man is not actually literal man, human man. That man is a kind. That man is a kind of man. And the kind of man that we saw is the kind of man that is a priest kind, of the priest kind. That mankind in the Bible, from Genesis throughout, in its firstly or primary sense, it has nothing to do with the natural man. This is mankind, or priest kind, or minister kind, priest kind. So within mankind was placed the image of God. Within priest kind was placed the image of God, meaning that where we see an organized body of religion and the priests and ministers, pastors therein and thereof, we can understand, and it is fair to conclude and fair to assume from what the Bible lets us know, that they operate via the code of Moses, via the philosophy of the religious law, which is the image of God. Now it says that into man was the image of God placed. Male and female created he them in the image of God. What is male and female? What is male and female? The kind here, representing the totality of male and female, is priest kind. So we can understand that the male and the female here are not literal. This is not literal male. This is not literal female, because image of God is not literal. Image of God must translate into objects for which it assumes the nature of. So when we think of what can assume the nature of the image of God, if the image of God is not literal, but if the image of God is a philosophical sequence of codes for which the conversation is supposed to be regulated by its thoughts and its feelings from what is handwritten, male and female is not going to be literal. Male and female, the best way that I can say this or articulate this is that male and female represent species. They represent species of mankind. They represent diverse species of mankind. Diverse meaning that male is not female, female is not male. This isn't literal. This is a philosophical species. The male is not the female and the female is not the male. They are different. And we're going to see verses that break down what this difference is, because when we see what this difference is, it will then make sense as to why and how the image of God can and does and will create them. So opening up to Galatians 3 verse 28. Galatians 3 verse 28. Galatians 3 verse 28 reads, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ." So the author of the book of Galatians is letting us know the species that male and female represent. There is neither Jew nor Greek. 1. There is neither bond nor free. 2. There is neither male nor female. 3. We can easily substitute the Jew and the bond for the male. We can easily substitute the Greek and the free for female. We will see how. When we're hearing male and female in the book of Genesis, we're not hearing of literal male, literal female, because the male and the female are created in the image of God, which is a character of devotion via the philosophy of the religious law. What can be created? What can be created via the character of the philosophy of the religious law, except Jew or Greek, bond or free? That's why it says neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, male nor female. These are not literal genders. These are not literal genders, but these are diverse species created in the image of God. They are not meant to be seen as literal male and female. They are made to be seen as genders, as species created in the image of God. And knowing what the image of God is, that's not too hard to understand. Looking at Genesis 6:18 through 20, just to get a better idea or a better sense of what we're getting at here. Genesis 6:18 through 20. Genesis 6:18 through 20 reads, "But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of creeping thing after the earth after their kind, 2 of every sort." So philosophically or contextually, that idea of sort, male and female are sorts. They're not literal genders. These are sorts created in the image of God. Male and female are sorts. Looking at Leviticus 19 and 19. Leviticus 19 and 19. "You shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed, neither shall a garment mingled of fine linen and woolen come upon thee." Now in this verse, I'm highlighting this verse because I want us to realize the separation here that the author of the book of Leviticus is doing. When it comes to those garments, neither of linen or of woolen, species of fabrics, linen or woolen, warp or woof, male or female, same thing. Species of fabric, male and female. Species of sort, male or female. That's again why it says neither Jew nor Greek, neither bond nor free, neither male nor female. In the surface sense, and if you actually maintain what is being said in that chapter, it's really not logical to keep a surface sense once you get to that point in the Galatians. In a surface sense, if you're not paying attention to what the author is saying, you may construe male and female to be literal, as if it is saying, listen, there's no such thing as male and female anymore. We are all one gender to the Creator, which, if you think about it, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. But if you follow the narrative, the author is not going in a literal sense. The author is breaking down male and female as Jew or Greek and as bond or free. Same as is in the book of Leviticus here, where the author is breaking down the mingled seed that shall not be mixed with a garment of linen or woolen. These are sorts. Male and female are sorts. And as sorts, they have to be understood according to the image of God that they are created in. These are sorts, not literal male and female. whether a pastor or a church leader or a ministry volunteer, or whether the work is going on within and that it's personal, your soul temple being cared for. Church Source is your online source for everything that you need to make your journey and your ministry prosperous. Head on over to my website to click the affiliate links. They will take you to Church Source, where you will be able to see and to discover the resources that will help you make your journey and your ministry thrive. Now looking at Leviticus 13, 47 and 48, the garment also that the plague of leprosy is in, whether it be a woolen garment or a linen garment, whether it be a warp or a woof, of linen or of woolen, whether in a skin or in anything made of skin. Again, just pointing out this verse here to show how the Bible separates sorts. As with the animals, so with the clothes, so with male and female, and in context of Genesis, created in the image of God. These are sorts. Looking at Ezekiel 44. Ezekiel 44, 16 to 18. Ezekiel 44, 16 to 18. They shall enter into my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table to minister unto me, and they shall keep my charge. And it shall come to pass that when they enter in at the gates of the inner court, they shall be clothed with linen garments, and no wool shall come upon them, whilst they minister in the gates of the inner court and within. They shall have linen bonnets upon their head, and shall have linen breeches upon their loins. They shall not gird themselves with anything that causeth sweat. Gender of garments here. This is a gender of garments. Linen, which is supposedly or should not cause sweat, but the other one does. You shouldn't be wearing these if it causes sweat. You should be wearing this if it doesn't. These are genders of sorts. Genders of sorts. Same kind of way we should be looking at male and female. Not in the literal context, because the author of the book of Genesis, chapter 1, does not give us the opportunity to put that into a literal context based off of what the male and the female are created in. We would do an injustice to go from saying that the image of God is the philosophy of the religious law, which it is, to then saying that the image of God created literal male and female, because a philosophical concept cannot create a literal human being. So when you take Galatians 3:28, Galatians 3:28, I'll read it again. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, yet for ye are all one in Christ. When we take this from Galatians 3:28, and when we add it to Galatians 3:10 and 11, again, when we add it to Galatians 3:10 and 11, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but Christ is all in all. The author of the book of Galatians has re-emphasized what was said in the book of Galatians. Galatians, it was Jew, Greek, it was bond, free, it was male, female. Here, it is Jew, it is Greek. It is circumcision, it is uncircumcision. It is Scythian, it is barbarian, it is bond, it is free. These are all classifications of male and female. This is the context of male and female. These are genders, these are sorts created in the image of God. These genders and these sorts created in the image of God being the philosophy of the religious law, which it is, can only lead to the creation of sorts of genders concerning religion. These sorts and genders concerning religion are broken down according to what the author of the book of Genesis is saying and the narrative within the scriptures into two categories, male and female, or Jew and Greek, or circumcision, uncircumcision, or bond and free. And if you're not going to be Jew, if you're not going to be circumcised, if you're not going to be bond, then we're going to term you as Scythian or barbarian. This is male, this is female. Circumcision, uncircumcision. The image of God, the philosophy of the religious law, created mankind, priestkind, by that same very image. And by that same very image created two sorts. By that same very image created two species. By that same very image created two genders. Male and female, or circumcised and uncircumcised. Male and female, or Jew and Greek. male and female, or bond, or free. This is the work that the image of God has done and continues to do and will continue to do within the religious world. Male and female will continue to exist. Bond and free will continue to exist. Jew and Greek will continue to exist. Circumcised and uncircumcised will continue to exist. And both will exist by the image of God, or via or through the code of Moses, or the philosophy of the religious law. So turning to the book of Ephesians chapter 2, just want to make this more plain, just want to make this more simple. Ephesians chapter 2 verses 11 and 12. Ephesians chapter 2 verses 11 and 12. Wherefore remember that you, being time past, Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without God in the world. When we're seeing male and female, we're seeing species of sorts created in the image of God. The author of the book of Ephesians, in their second chapter, lets us know Gentiles are the uncircumcised. The other class is the circumcised. Remember, Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, circumcision nor uncircumcision, male nor female. These are all classifications that are not literal, but that are pointing to species of denominations. Species of denomination 1 is either a Jew. Species denomination 2 is either a Greek. Species 1 is either circumcised. Species 2 is either uncircumcised. Now, looking at Ezekiel 23:12-7, because I want to get a better sense of female, that we may be able to have a better sense of male. And I'm going to look at this in a very ignorant and carnal way, in a sensual way, to understand what female is and what female represents. Ezekiel 23:12-17. Ezekiel 23:12-17. She doted upon the Assyrians, her neighbors, captains and rulers, clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding upon horses, all of them desirable young men. Then I saw that she was defiled, that they took both one way, and that she increased her whoredoms. For when she saw men portrayed upon the wall, the images of the Chaldeans, portrayed with vermilion, girded with girdles upon their loins, exceeding in dyed attire upon their heads, all of them princes to look to, after the manner of the Babylonians of Chaldea, the land of their nativity. And as soon as she saw them with her eyes, she doted upon them, and sent messengers unto them into Chaldea. And the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their whoredom, and she was polluted with them, and her mind was alienated from them. Now, this is a parable about Jerusalem and Samaria, and how Jerusalem and Samaria found themselves alienated in mind by the Assyrians and the Babylonians. The Jew, we can say, found themselves alienated by the Greek, by the uncircumcised. We can assign ignorantly, sensually, and carnally the category of female to what is called, or to what is the Gentile. They're female. Why? They're female. Why? And again, remember, I'm approaching this ignorantly, sensually, and carnally. They are female because the Gentile and the uncircumcised are female. The Greek are female because they are polarizing. They are gorgeous. They are dressed tantalizingly. They are prone to make one lust, and they have the capacity to alienate the mind. They are prone also to capture themselves in pictures or in images, and by such they lead minds astray from senses, and senses specifically for set on quote-unquote God. Think Delilah and Samson, what Delilah did to Samson. Think that, and that's what the Gentile, the uncircumcised, is categorized as doing, or the female, approaching this sensually, as the female form is elegant and nice to look at, and as it is upsetting and prone to cause jealousy among men, and also alienation of mind, and also the start of wars. Many women are fought over. It is the female form, it is the female that alienates the minds, that can alienate the mind, cause division, and do so much trouble just because of the allure to their form. The Gentile in context, the uncircumcised in context, doing this to Israel, doing this to the supposed Jew, is letting us know that the female is at work against the male. Is that the female is at work against the male. And that's the sort, that's the division, that's the diverse species that male and female is when you get into their context according to what the image of God is. This isn't anything literal. The image of God is a philosophical concept by righteousness via deeds, acts, theories, commandments, ceremonies, and so on and so forth. Male and female are created in these, or Jew and Greek, or circumcised and uncircumcised, or bond and free. They are created in this manner.
Our faith is alive. Our belief is a living structure. But what does it mean to have a working faith? What does it mean to have a belief assisting our thoughts and feelings? A Faith That Works is a book informing its reader on how to cultivate an active faith. We usually have to make our faith work. We usually need to do something in order for us to feel like our faith is alive. Is this the right way to handle our devotional experience? Find correct guidance and instruction on how to carry the body of your faith in A Faith That Works.
Still staying with an essential or carnal mind concerning the categorization of female, just want to give a verse from Ephesians to sort of solidify this. Ephesians 4:17-19. Ephesians chapter 4 verses 17 to 19. Ephesians 4 chapter 17 to 19. This I say therefore and testify in the Lord, that you henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. When we're hearing uncircumcised or Greek, when we're hearing their manner of carrying themselves, the way that they are, and their ability to cause the mind to turn to vanity, cause the mind to turn dark, to cause the mind to turn to practices that are lewd and that are obscene. Again, strictly sensual and carnal. In this instance, we are hearing about what the female is capable of doing, what the female can do, whether or not they realize it, what the female form, what the female essence, what the female elegance, what the female person can do to the mind. Male and female. So the female doing all of this, the Gentile, the uncircumcised, the Greek doing all of this to the supposed Jew, to the supposed circumcised. We're seeing the female at work. We're seeing the female at work. And on the other side of that is the male. On the other side of that is the male. So when we're hearing that the image of God is the blueprint for the religious world, and when we're seeing this in the scriptures, and when we're hearing that the image of God created male and female in its likeness, understanding how male and female in this context is broken down, it's not literal. Male and female is not literal, because the image of God is not literal. Male and female are species or diverse sorts, brought up, created in the image of God. So what we really have here, just to say this in plain layman's terms, is that the philosophy of the religious law is given to male or female. The philosophy of the religious law is given to both Jew and is given to both Greek. Is given to both the circumcised, is given to both the uncircumcised. To the male and to the female, to the Jew and to the Greek, is given the responsibility via the image of God, via the philosophy of the religious law, to subdue and have dominion over the earth. So via their main character trait, which is the image of God, which main character trait is the philosophy of the religious law, righteousness via deeds, acts, ceremonies, baptisms, rites, theories, commandments, holy or holidays, so on and so forth, that is handwritten by pen. Both Jew and Greek have this, and both Jew and Greek are given the responsibility to subdue the earth by these things and have dominion over it by these things. So when we're hearing, and I find it completely interesting when I talk about this subject and when I break down these things, when individuals ask me about them, to show how interesting this subject is, to show how interesting the subject is in the type of dialogue that the author of the book of Genesis in their first chapter would raise. The discussion is not a literal discussion. The discussion is philosophical. Male and female are created in the image of God. If the image of God is not a literal physical image, but is a philosophical concept, we cannot expect the philosophical concept to give birth to natural human beings, to flesh and bones. Because God is a spirit and the spirit does not have flesh and bones, the Bible tells us. This has to move us to think a little bit more deeply and more thoughtfully. Because what should a philosophical concept, which is rule of the devotional conversations conscience, by precepts, by deeds, and by acts, what should that give birth to? Except a species of Jew and Greek, of bond and free, of circumcised and uncircumcised. In right context of language, this is the male and the female that is created in the likeness of the image of God.